got married to a Funko Pop. Whoa. We got wedded, conjoined in a Subway shop. Whoa. I'm married to my Funko Pop. Whoa. We got joined, co-writers in a Subway shop. Whoa. Vitamins and biscuits and minerals, they come to me through a tube. My whole life is spent watching on a tube. I'm married to a Funko Pop. Whoa. We got wedded, we got joined in a Subway shop. Whoa. Vitamins and minerals, they come to me through a tube. Vitamins and minerals, they come from me through this here tube. I got married to my Funko Pop. Whoa.
Little monkey, you climbed up in that tree. What you doing up there? Why you scared? Why you running from every debate? You ran from Andrew and from me. Mad little monkey, mad little monkey, mad little monkey. You like the female monkeys with them bananas between their trees, hanging down, upside down, frown, that's a smile. What you doing to me? Climbing up that tree. Matt and a female male monkey climbed up a tree. KSSING and doing much more and worse than that. Mad little monkey, mad little monkey, mad little monkey. You like the female monkeys with them bananas between their trees, hanging down, upside down, frown, that's a smile. Mad little monkey, what you doing to me? Climbing up that tree. Give me a na-na-na, na-na-na. One more big na-na-na. Cause my name is Mad Little Monkey, but I say it's not a banana, I say it's a JJ. That reminds me of Jay, he beat me in a debate. Mad Little Monkey, Mad Little Monkey, Mad Little Monkey. You like the female monkeys with them bananas between their trees, hanging down, upside down, frown, that's a smile. Mad Little Monkey, what you doing to me? Little monkey, what happened to you, baby? I thought you was all about reason and you was all about science, but now you saying all kind of bunch of nonsense.
Advanced AI capabilities. Where do we get the Bible from? Did you even read the canons? There is only one church, you are in a cult. You're a goblin, a demon, a boomer tard. You're so mean on you, dude. Is this your first time on the interwebs? Jamie, I need a ginger Jew. Can't take it, these low tier slow boys on you, dude. 1 + 1 + 1 = 3. Icons are idolatry. Why do you pray to dead people? That's the traditions of men, you heretic. Wow, 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 wow. On you, dude. Is this your first time on the interwebs? Shady, I need a ginger Jew. Can't take it, these low tier slow boys. On you, dude. What's your epistemic justification? That argument is circular, and you are refuted.
Conjoined in a Subway shop. Oh, whoa. Oh, whoa. To a Funko Pop. Whoa. Vitamins and minerals, they come to me through a tube. It's been watching on the tube. Whoa! Oh, 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 oh. Oh, oh. In a Subway shop. Oh, whoa. We got wedding coaches in a Subway shop. Oh, whoa. Like and share, nerds. Like and share, nerds. We got wedding coaches in a Subway shop. Oh, whoa. Oh, oh, oh. Y'all ready for some debate action? Some hot debate action? This is how I get hyped up for it. This one's my favorite, the Patti LaBelle one. In a Subway shop. Whoa, whoa. I'm married to a Funko Pop. Vitamins and minerals, they come to me through a tube. My whole life is spent watching on the tube. Whoa. In a Subway shop. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Ooh. 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 All you Triad nerds need to like and share. Where are them nerds at? Where are them haters at? Dude, no, they don't want no smoke. Gavin Orland don't want no smoke. What are y'all talking about? All right, let's do it. Welcome, everybody. Another open debate. I notice when I make it any topic, we don't get the heat. For example, last night, no one called into debate in 4 hours, which was unique. We had, what do we have? We had like Q&A for 4 hours. We had a lot of interesting topics, but I don't know if it's a new layer of throttling due to the predilection that's going on. Because, you know, for a while there, every time my live streams start edging up towards 30, 40,000 on the average, suddenly it drops back down to 15. Now, that could be throttling. I think that's probably what it is. But then again, it could be also every time I try to shift away from debating idiots, I get half the views because people just love seeing dum-dums be dum-dums. Like, it's just like a thing, you know. People just love it. It's just a thing. And Gavin Ortland is pushing a lot of things against orthodoxy because so many people are going to orthodoxy. Have y'all not figured that out yet? Why are all the people addressing and talking about orthodoxy? Because everybody's converting. What do you think? They wouldn't, if it wasn't happening, they wouldn't care. They wouldn't address it. They would just do that. They would do their thing. But these positions are so lame and so weak, and all these people shoot themselves in the foot too, because their positions are so weak, and the actions that they take are not really conducive to the best way for them to prove their points and defend their positions. Then again, I guess they're doing the best they can for their positions. I don't think they know what else to do. You know, I mean, look, Redeem Zoomer, much bigger channel than Ortland. Dude just quit. He just retired. Now, granted, he's about 20. He doesn't want any smoke from me. Well, Gavin Ortland wanting smoke means he wants to make comfortable videos on his own. But I mean, how many times do we have to address these same topics? We've addressed icons since 2018. Over and over and over and over. And I make the videos over and over and over. And I make the open debates over and over and over. And it's always the same stuff. And I don't know what the answer is. Maybe I should just literally list every question and make a 8-minute video on every question. Is that the only way to do it? Sean Coble says we have so many catechumen in our parish. Yes, pretty much every Orthodox church that I hear about, and I know a lot, I hear a lot, has doubled. And so people are getting tired of all this just stupid stuff. All Orthodox have to do is just be Orthodox, and the people are going to come. We don't have to have Funko Pop gimmicks creating Funko Pope. We don't need, you know, stupid. No, people don't want these gimmicks. Yeah, our church doubled in the last couple of years. So, I mean, my personal parish. Another parish also doubled. I want to see, look, the debates that you guys want to see is really, I think, for your entertainment. And, you know, I've been debating for a long time. And, you know, I don't mind entertaining debates, but after a while, it's kind of like, sometimes debates give the impression that stupid positions are tenable. Does that make sense? And so in other words, it's a disservice sometimes to even do a debate with certain people in certain positions because it gives them credibility. It gives the impression that these are some serious, these are some serious things that need to be taken care of. We really got to address this. Now that we got a dude who says he wants to debate me on Trinity today. He's got an AI picture of himself trying to make himself chatified on Instagram. He said, I would love to debate you on the Trinity, son. So we'll see if Alex comes to debate, not Jones. We'll see if he shows up. I see Alex in the quay. Maybe that's him. Y'all want to go ahead and get started? Let's see if this is Alex. Where is everybody today? Saturdays. This should be a perfect day for a crowd. We just started, but we got 400. Let's see what we got going today. Alex, what's up? Are you the dude from Instagram?
Thanks for calling me an AI-generated person.
It's a joke, dude.
Well,
obviously, I don't mean you yourself or AI generated. I said your picture.
On Instagram or here?
Instagram.
Is it AI generated? No, that's
It's
my
just
real picture.
I'm making jokes. They always make jokes. What's up? What's
So anyway, I would love to debate you,
Yeah.
but in Danish time it's like 7 and my boy is 6, so we should definitely schedule like a whole evening where we can get it on.
Can you debate a little bit right now?
You're asking me to not to take care of my son, but
Okay, so
I
now
guess I can
now
give
it's
you
a
like
moral.
intro.
Yeah, I'm an evil moral person. I'm asking you to debate when you wanted to come debate.
No, I'm just saying we should schedule a day. I'm not calling you evil, but I can give you like an
Why would I
intro.
give a random ass dude a whole evening that I don't even know who you are?
That's a good point. So I would I've been making YouTube videos about why the Trinity is false, and I base it basically on my understanding of the Bible. Being Protestant, I believe in interpreting the Bible directly instead of going to the church fathers and doing it the Catholic/Orthodox way.
Okay, well, why should we think that's true?
My way of reasoning and interpreting.
Yeah, why do you think that that's the approach we should take? On what basis is that true?
Well, you're right. Maybe we should go. Yeah, you're right. We could approach it in a more fundamental level and talk about whether or not we have direct access in reasoning with God by reading His Word and interpreting Scripture. But I guess that's a different topic.
Well, I mean, you said I start with a Protestant approach, and I'm asking you, how do you know that that's the right epistemic approach to the Bible?
Well, I don't know if I would call myself. I don't know if I live up to every tenet of being a Protestant. I think Protestantism has fallen. It's a Protestant is apostate to original Protestantism. So I don't know if
Yeah, but the original Protestants were Trinitarians, so you're an Arian. So how does that? How are you How are you an original Protestant?
Exactly. I'm not. That's kind of my point. But I would still.
But they had the right They had the right hermeneutic. They had the right approach to interpreting the scriptures.
Partly, I mean, they believe that that humans reason with God by reading the Bible, having access to the Bible, and being, persecuted for owning a Bible, like the Anabaptists and Huguenots and all of these people who actually believed in reading every day and
Okay,
and
so
studying.
I mean, does the Old Testament throughout? Do you believe the Old Testament, or you reject it?
I completely believe in the Old Testament.
Okay.
I'm actually a Sabbath keeper.
Oh, so now you're a Judaizing heretic as well. It makes sense. Those things usually go together. How come throughout the
Yeah.
Old Testament the angel of the Lord is called Yahweh and presented as divine?
Come again. I didn't get that last part.
How come the angel of the Lord throughout the Old Testament is called Yahweh and presented as divine and worshipped?
Because an angel, it means just a messenger. So Jesus was called, even though Jesus is divine, I believe Jesus is divine. I believe Jesus is a literal son of God, which the Trinity.
So you think
denies.
there's multiple gods? You're a polytheist?
That's a great question, and that's one of the things I would bring up in my debate. Is that I would start by defining terms. So when you say God, right? When you use the term God, an average person on a Danish street, anyway, but probably like wherever in the West, would think of the term God as the source of everything, an omnipotent, omniscient entity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and I don't think that Jesus fits that definition of being a God, even though I don't have a problem calling Jesus God because he fits a different definition of God.
So you believe in multiple gods? You're a polytheist?
I believe, no, hold on. I believe in multiple definitions of God, but I believe, just as the Bible says, that there is only one true God. There is only one, the Most High. There is only one, the Ancient of Days.
Okay, then why in the Old Testament is the angel of the Lord given all the same titles as the one God, Yahweh?
I don't think he is.
Well, all of those passages, like in Judges, where it says Gideon, that says Yahweh turned his face to Gideon. Hagar says she saw God face to face. Jacob says he wrestled with God.
Yeah, so that that's what I already answered. Jacob did wrestle with God, but it was not the one true God. He wrestled with Jesus in his pre-human form.
Yeah, but the Old Testament calls the angel of the Lord the glory of God, the face of Yahweh in Judges 6.
Yes, Jesus is the glory of God. He's the express.
So there's a
image of
created
God.
glory of God. So now you're a polytheist.
No, hold on, hold on, bro. So the one true God, the Most High, the Ancient of Days, God the Father, had a son before he created the universe through his son, just like the Bible says, right?
He had a son before he created the universe through his son?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, in John 1, does it say that the son began to be, or does it say that he was always with the Father?
It says that in the beginning, God, in the beginning, he was.
What's the rest of the verse?
Yeah, let's go and read John. But I can't have the whole debate tonight. But I get why you would want to have like a teaser tonight. So, but anyway, Jesus. There are many Bible verses where
You're not going to answer what I just said.
Yeah, what did you just say?
What does John? You don't know John 1:1?
I do. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God.
There you go.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. That's
not what you're saying. That's the opposite of what you're saying.
No, I'm saying that this fits the definition, the second definition of God. I have the Bible.
There is no second definition. That's something you made up.
Yeah, but there is.
Where is that?
If you hear me out, I'll
Where in John 1 is there two different definitions of the word God?
The Word was with God. The Word is Jesus.
And
Jesus.
The Word was God.
Yeah.
Where in that verse is there two gods?
In the middle of the verse, it says the Word was with God.
Dude, you're an idiot. Come on, man. You're an idiot. Get out of here.
No,
Moving on. That was so stupid. In the middle of the verse, there's two different gods. I knew that was a waste of time. I don't even know why I wasted some time with that. Did the stream cut out for a second? So look, enough of that. Welcome everybody. We're going to be open topics today. The topics are anything theological regarding Catholicism, Protestantism, Islam, atheism, Gnosticism, Hebrew roots, Arianism, Mormonism, cults, sects, Black Hebrew Israelites, Calvinism. If you got a question, okay, I guess, but I'm looking for people who disagree, people who want to debate. I want to hear good arguments. That guy had no arguments at all. He didn't even know what John 1:1 was without going and turning to it and reading the rest of it, and then saying that there's two different types of God in John 1:1. And his Protestantism led him to his Arianism. What a great testament to the stupidity of Protestantism. That this guy, this Danish genius, has been led to polytheism. And you notice that it's polytheism because for him there's two types of gods. There's God, the ultimate God, and then the gods that God created, like Jesus, the Son of God, who is a created God. And yet Hebrews 1, the entire chapter of Hebrews 1, explains that the Son created everything, and so there's nothing superior to him. There's nothing that came to be that he didn't create, which means that he wasn't a creature. Duh. I don't know. The internet must have cut out for a second. I don't know. But that was really stupid. Odisho. So if you want to call in, please do call in here and make your arguments.
Hello?
Yep.
Hey Jay, big fan of yours, and I'm basically just looking into Eastern Orthodoxy as a Protestant. And even though I've appreciated the depth and the richness of the faith, obviously there are just some issues that I'm like kind of wrestling with, which are the typical ones, which are the most basic would be like justification by faith, the atonement, and obviously, you know, the authority of Scripture. I just had a couple questions on a couple of verses on like justification by faith and the atonement, if you don't mind.
Okay.
So, in terms of like just the official like Eastern Orthodox position, just to kind of simplify and make it clear, would it be that like kind of similar to the Roman Catholics, where you're initially justified by faith and it works out through love and your works, or is there not that type of a distinction with you guys?
I think it's faith working through love is the living faith that counts. We don't have the rigorous sort of strictures that Rome has about all these categorizations of venial and mortal sins and all of that. But the faith has to be living and active for it to be a faith that counts, absolutely.
Gotcha. Obviously, I agree with that statement because it's biblical, but like, let's just say hypothetically, if I were to just quote like Romans 3, where it says like, we hold that one is justified by faith apart from works of the law, and just kind of stop there, like period, would that be like an issue?
No, it's rather just what that word means. And so look, I'm not trying to be rude, but I've addressed this probably 500 times. So if you want to go over here to my Eclipse channel, you'll see I have two talks right there that deal with the doctrine of Calvinism. And even though it says Calvinism, by extension, this part 1 and part 2 here will address all of the Protestant doctrines. So I would say watch that. In terms of Protestant doctrines of penal substitution and atonement, I have a video right here called Penal Substitution Refuted in Byzantium, as well as all of the Calvinist talks that we've done. And if you want to see, that's really loud, bro. I'm just going to go ahead and turn that off. The debate we did with Dale right here on the Clips channel covers the issue of Sola Scriptura. So remember, guys, most of the FAQ questions that you have, I I guess there's just no easy way to make these always available. But inevitably, every time, I'm not fussing, I'm just saying, like, the topics always end up being those things. And we have multiple, but I mean, basically any live stream open debate that we've ever done covers those topics. But that's okay, I'm not fussing. Nicodemus. Nicodemus, are you there? Don't haggle with me over stupid ass spurgy stuff.
Hello, AJ, how you doing? I probably have one of those questions for you. So for those Protestants that are saying that, you know, the Orthodox are pagan worshippers or idol worshippers and that kind of thing, I get that there's New Testament references to burning incense unto the saints and that type of thing. But is there OT references that I can share with those people that are saying those kinds of things?
Of burning incense?
Or, you know, basically saying that Orthodox are worshiping idols because they have icons and that kind of thing.
So in Joshua 7, Joshua rends his clothes and he falls before the ark on his face until the evening, and the elders of Israel prostrate as well, and they put dust on their heads. So they're prostrating before the ark, which has 2 angels on it.
Okay. And I'm familiar with that one. Are there other ones I can share with them? I mean, that is a good one. Thank you.
First Chronicles 28, 29, somewhere in there. All of Israel does the exact same thing in front of Solomon.
Okay, excellent. Fantastic. Thank you, sir. What about, I mean, if I may add up to that, what about like the later Jews, like even Hasidic Jews? Do they have also, I mean, do they continue this kind of practice or not?
Hasidic Jews believe that righteous do intercede. I think they pray for the dead, going from memory. But they don't have icons or images because they believe that it has to be what's prescribed in the Torah. So they have to have a temple in Jerusalem. You can't build your own Ark of the Covenant.
Okay, awesome. All right, thank you, sir. God bless you. Follow you.
Yeah, those are great questions. Appreciate those questions. Those aren't dumb questions. Welcome, everybody. It's open forum. If you have your questions, topics for debate, challenges, disagreements, remember the topics are fairly broad in terms of anything religious related. Bible, church history, patristics, councils, Islam, Koran, Revelation, Protestantism, Calvinism, Evangelicalism, Arianism, cults, Hebrew roots, JWs, etc., etc. It is your day. Parker Scott, what's up, dude? If you're watching on YouTube, you can call in through the link right here on Twitter. So come and join me.
What's up, Jay?
Yeah.
So I was debating my friend on TikTok Live, like an R-tard. I don't know why I was doing that, but he's a solipsist, and usually when I'm absolutely lost, I just go to your channel because it seems like you can like pretty much back up everything. So I went to Jay's analysis and I read the refutation of solipsism, but I still didn't really understand it. Would you be able to
Are you talking about that old ass article that I wrote that was like 1 page?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically just, the point is just very simply that if solipsism is true, you could never know that. In other words, you can never have justified true belief knowledge that solipsism is true, because it's a self-defeating belief. Because if everything is a projection of my mind, then I don't really know what right. isn't a projection of my mind, right? In other words, I don't have anything to compare it to. And so if everything is, in that sense, like illusory, then I don't have a benchmark of the true to compare the illusory to, or the false to.
Right, and yeah, and they're literally in an illusion. So,
well, and also, how would you know that everything is a projection of your mind? It also seems like something that wouldn't be possible to know, even if you thought it was the case. Like, how do you prove or demonstrate that everything is a projection of your mind? It just seems like some kind of weird, eccentric belief that a person might have.
Yeah, and I mean, everyone knows that. Even the solipsists will tell you, like, they don't live like that. Like, no one, like, you're
that's
not,
true. Yeah.
Like, you're not debating a microwave right now. You're on TikTok live debating me. I got one more question.
Yeah.
What do you think about Jonathan Peugeot's work with, like, symbolism? Because that's what originally attracted me to Eastern Orthodox. Do you think it's a little out there? Because sometimes he'll be kind of like Jordan Peterson, where he will kind of, like, dodge it, and people will be like, what do you think about the, Adam and Eve? And he'll be like, that's the best way to explain the event that occurred, and it is explaining events. Do you think that could be like a slippery slope?
Overall, I really like Peugeot. I've known him for several years. We've always had overall pretty good rapport. The one area where I disagree would be that I would take a stronger stance on the historicity of Adam and Eve. But I think he's intending to express good principles and the truth overall. So I would say it's an area where we disagree, but we agree on pretty much everything else. So, I would just take a stronger stance on that issue.
Okay. All right. Thank you, buddy.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Good questions. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. John Claude Van Johnson. We got a JCBD fan in the audience. Appreciate that. Seraphim. What's up, man? It's open forum. That means you can call in. I don't know what else is there to do today? Where is everybody? Why do we not have our usual 1,000 live here? What's going on?
Hey, Jay.
Saturday. What's up, man?
Hey, man. I have two questions. The first one is kind of debatey, but it's not my position. I debated a oneness Pentecostal, which it's kind of hard arguing tradition and telling him that he's following a heresy from 250 AD when he truly believes that, like,
right.
The church was revived in the Azusa Street revival. So he states Acts 2:38 as Peter commanding everyone to be baptized in the name of Jesus, and I point towards the end of Matthew where Christ literally commands the apostles to baptize in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And his argument is that if they're baptizing in the name of Jesus, then ergo Jesus is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. That's like his whole argument is predicated on that one verse. And I didn't know how to really go about, like, I feel like there's a lot of cognitive dissonance, in a factor in this. But, I mean, why would the apostles baptize in Jesus' name only and not the Trinitarian?
Well, they're not. That's just a terminological stand-in for in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So, in other words, when you say the name of Jesus, what's assumed is that it is the Trinitarian baptism. It's not literally only baptizing in the name of Jesus. So that's just kind of a silly hermeneutic assumption that many cults will bring to a text. And if you're dealing with somebody who's so low tier that they are basically using one verse as the linchpin of the restoration of their sect, you're dealing with somebody who's borderline probably retorted. So I would say a better approach because that kind of person has cult blinders to all the verses you're going to throw at them. You need to bring a heavier machinery to the debate and just cut out everything from underneath him and say that your sect didn't exist and the people that put the Bible together are the Orthodox. So how are you going to understand a book better than the people that put it together, and you don't even have the right collection of the books? That will destroy the thing that undergirds, because when you get into it with these idiot cult members, they'll never stop throwing texts back and forth at you. It's just it's a never-ending. Well, what about this verse? What about this verse? What about this verse? And they don't care about harmonizing all the verses, right? Because they think, well, no, but I go by this verse. So undercut all of that with pointing out through the canon argument that, like, you're not even in the church. You're not a church. Like, you don't have the Bible. You're not anything except a crazy cult. You got to be straight up.
So, like, battle the biblical presuppositions before we even go to the scriptures. All right. Yeah. Next question I have, this one isn't necessarily a topic of debate. I have a friend who is inquiring into orthodoxy, and he's starting to read some of Father Seraphim Rose's books, which I think is not, too bad. A lot of what he writes is kind of open for anyone to sort of get into spiritual wise, but he started reading The Soul After Death, and the conclusion that he comes to after reading the position on the toll houses is that every religion can be a pathway to God if after death we're able to sort of atone for our sins on earth and turn to Christ after death. And I think a lot of it is him kind of coping with the fact that his father recently died in the Sikh religion, and he's trying to find some consolation. But I think
the first point is that the first thing I would say is that phrase is false. I mean, even if God can, reach somebody on the deathbed in a miraculous, non-normative way, that has nothing to do with their false religion being a means of salvation. There are no false religions that are means of salvation.
Right, but I think the major point that he was driving was like, So I also argue that, the toll house is just one of many Orthodox views on like what happens after death. But he was stating that, in the book, and I've read the book myself, it's been a while, but he was bringing up certain chapters that deal on how after the soul's departing, you are sort of given in what would be seen as, for lack of better terms, like a second chance to sort of repent and turn to Christ. So maybe not he's saying that every religion leads to Christ, but that no matter what religion you are, you would have a second chance upon death.
Well, I mean, we just don't know that for sure. And this is also, I'm not blaming you or criticizing you, but this is a really odd entryway into Orthodoxy.
Yeah.
I mean, people need to get grounded in the scriptures and in catechesis, and not come into Orthodoxy through toll houses. That's like the worst, probably, way to come into Orthodoxy.
Yeah. I applaud him for reading Father Seraphim Rose, but I don't think that The Soul After Death was like the best.
No, he should have started with like God's Revelation of the Human Heart, or nihilism or something like that, or Orthodox Survival, of course, maybe. But now I would say he should probably read something like Pomazansky's Orthodox Theology and get a grounding in the theology before jumping to the really speculative matters. It's the same thing as like when people come into Christianity or religion through end times gibberish. It just creates all these problems because it's it's sexy and sensational to talk about Antichrist and the end times, and when no, you need to come into it through starting with the doctrine of Trinity and Christology and all the stuff that catechesis teaches.
Right, and what was the author of that book on Orthodox theology that you just mentioned?
Pomazansky, Orthodox Dogmatics.
Pomazansky, Orthodox Dogmatics. All right, thank you. I'll recommend that to him. That's all I got. I appreciate you.
Yeah, a lot of times what happens is that people get kind of, also too, they want shortcuts, and so they want to like, I want to go ahead and just sign up now. I want to be catechized and chrismated or baptized now. I want it all now. You need to take your time. You need to learn all of these things, and you need to attend all the classes and work through the basics instead of trying to jump into these like, extremely speculative, mystical, difficult doctrines, right? We don't come into Orthodoxy through the Philokalia. So you got to start with stuff like Orthodox Dogmatic Theology by Pomazansky, which is what's used most often in churches all over the place to catechize people.
Yeah, I don't blame him. I think he was coming into, like, he's turning towards Orthodoxy to see if he can have an answer to, like, the state of his father's soul.
I understand.
Yeah,
I know, but
I'll recommend that book to him, though. I appreciate it. That's all the questions I had.
No, those are good questions. We also can't let, I'm not saying this is his fault, but, we can't let the things that we want to be the case dictate our religious choices. That's really the problem everywhere. Because everybody, if you love truth, you gotta basically submit everything to what's true. And most people who are on their way to destruction, the reason they're on their way to destruction is that they love and believe lies. And they would rather love and believe lies for whatever reasons: pride, simplicity, ease, comfort, believing they're going to be on the winning team, whatever. But, broad's that path that leads to destruction. So the way out of that is that we all got to be submitting to what's true. That means that we might have something wrong. And I can't choose my religion based on the things that I want to be the case. That's just another echo of the fall. You will be your own God, deciding what's true and false, right? We can't operate that way. V. Saraceni. V. Saraceni.
Jay, I just have a quick question about circular reasoning. Is it true? I'm kind of new to the whole logic and philosophy thing. Is it true that there is circular reasoning that is not fallacious?
Yeah, maybe using the term circular is inappropriate in that case because it would be recursive or a different order of reasoning. And that's because of the nature of the thing in question. So, for example, if we use an analogy to like linguistic philosophy, if we're inquiring into the status and meaning of words themselves and how do words mean, well, aren't we going to have to use words? Oh, well, I guess you're being circular because you're using the thing in question. Yeah, but it's impossible. By the necessity of the thing in question, namely words themselves, it's impossible not to utilize words to discuss words and how words mean. So at the same time, in logic, if I raise the bar, and I'm not doing first order logic or reasoning about the mundane things of the world, if I start asking questions about logic itself, I still cannot avoid using logic. I will be using logic in meta logic. Does that mean that it's invalid because I'm using the thing in question? No, it's unavoidable. And so in that case, it's recursive, or it refers back, it's self-referencing, and maybe self-referential is a better term than circular, because people think that there's no such thing as meta logic or reasoning at that level, because they assume that when you talk about the fallacy of circular reasoning, that this is some sort of in all situations and in all cases. Another example might be something like, normally it is a fallacy to reason in a ad hominem way against the man. But what if what's in question is whether the man is moral? Well, obviously I have to, if the man is not moral, discuss the fact that he is immoral. Oh, I guess you're using your ad hominem. It's not ad hominem in that unique case, because the question at hand is whether in fact he's moral. So you see how there's sometimes exceptions to the rule, and in the case of circular quote-unquote reasoning, the exception here is when the question is about reasoning and logic itself, considered in itself. How does it work? How is logic logical? That's a meta question.
Got it. I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Yeah, great question. Hopefully that addresses this endless, never-ending atheist retort, which they can never seem to figure out. Our Carrie. You gotta unmute. Our Carrie, do you want to talk? You have to unmute.
Sorry, I was backing in a trailer. I'm at work right now, but I had a
Oh, he's backing it up, baby. Back it up, back it up, back it up.
Yeah, so I had a quick question. I'm an idiot, okay? But I was wondering if you could just help me out real quick. I'm a catechumen, but I was basically debating somebody, and they got to a point. I was not debating, but I was like, we're having an argument or whatever, and it got to a point where they said that, well, don't you know that all opinions are subjective? And I'm like, I listen to you a lot, so I use what you say, that you can't say that all opinions are objective. You're using a universal to say that there are no universals. And the thing is, I was thinking about it because I was thinking at what point, like if there's, like, let's say somebody's sad, wouldn't that be like subjective that they're sad? Is there a possibility that somebody can be objectively sad, or somebody can be objective in some way?
Well, I think this is just that we would just make a a distinction between the subjective experience of feeling sadness and being in a state of sadness, and at the same time, it is also objectively the case that you are sad. So it's both.
So something can be subjectively or objectively subjective.
Well, just because something is subjective doesn't mean that it's not objective. That's what your friend is talking about, is what's called subjectivism, and that's a different thing. Subjectivism or relativism is the idea that all beliefs, all propositions, all truths are purely relative and purely subjective. That's a different thing from, am I having a subjective experience?
Okay, all right. That's all I wanted to know. Just a quick distinction. Is that like? Can I read more about that in like in Aristotle's works? Does he talk a lot more about that? Is there like a
no, Aristotle. I mean, this is more of a modern philosophical type of discussion. I don't think Aristotle really thought in those ways. I mean, he had to debate with sophists certainly in his day, but and the closest thing to relativism in the days of the ancient Greeks were the sophists. But I think a better book would be something like W.J. Wood's book on epistemology. You'll find him discussing in that book all those kind of basic epistemic issues. So this is more of a modern idea of skeptical, relativistic skepticism or something.
Gotcha. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Welcome everybody. We got glad to see you guys here. We got 3 people in line, and we got a cool 700. We got the 700 Club over here. I'm like Pat, my boy Pat Robertson over here. Put your hands on the screen, and gonna heal gout out there in the name of Jesus. Somebody's got gout out there, and all of that gout money needs to go to the nation of Israel. My little 700 Club plug there. What's up, Xander? Anton Xandor LeBay. Or are we talking about Xander from Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
What's up, J Unit? How are you, brother?
I'm good.
So I have one question about reincarnation. So I've been talking with some friends, and I think this is it comes from Gnosticism. So they make compelling cases for early Christianity and even Judaism, that they believed in reincarnation, that even maybe Jesus believed in reincarnation. It's sort of encoded in the Bible. For instance, I think it was St. John the Baptist he talks about perhaps being the
right. So first of all, let's address how bad that argument is. No, the fact hold on.
Well, Jay, if you don't mind, I'll just form the question and be done. So could you make what is the best argument for reincarnation being something that might be true, or there might be a there, or is there not a good argument?
There's not one. No, there is. It's a silly position. And when they go to stuff to prove it, they'll say stuff like, John the Baptist came in the spirit and power of Elijah. All that means is typologically he was of the same type of spirit in terms of being an ascetic prophet like Elijah was. It doesn't mean that he's the reincarnation of Elijah. So this comes out of rabbinic traditions, and even rabbinic traditions and Kabbalistic traditions that adopted this, they got it from Plato. Because so much of the Kabbalistic tradition, the more you get into it, they're influenced by, yes, in part, elements of the chariot angel stuff going on in Ezekiel. But more so, Kabbalism is influenced by Gnosticism and Neoplatonism, very clearly. And the scholarship in modernity on that is pretty much unanimous across the board. We just lectured through the 500-page Cambridge Companion to Esotericism, and every chapter in that dealt with Kabbalism and medieval Kabbalah, Christian Kabbalah, quote unquote, says all the same stuff I just said. So it's not anywhere in the Bible that there's any ridiculous idea of reincarnation. It's a completely pagan view, and most likely the Jews were influenced again through perhaps even all the way back to Babylon with Babylonian Talmud influence. But other than the misinterpretation of the text, which is about the Messianic era being initiated, that John the Baptist is a type of prophet just like Elijah and Elisha, that has to do with the fulfillment in the minor prophets, where it said that before the great coming of the day of the Lord, my prophet Elijah will come. So Jesus is saying that messianic prophecy in the minor prophets is fulfilled in John the Baptist. Nothing to do with reincarnation. That's completely stupid. Anyway, I'm not knocking you. I'm just saying that's...
No, that's perfect. Yeah, that's helpful.
When you understand like the messianic fulfillment, it's obvious that's not talking about... It's also a partial preterist proof, because it shows that these Old Testament predictions about the last days are inaugurated when the Messiah came the first time. The eschaton is now. It invaded now. That's why the heavenly liturgy, of which the temple was a type, is here in reality in the divine liturgy. That's a great question, though. Kay, what's up, Kay?
Hello.
What's up, man?
Yeah, so I'm an inquiring Eastern Orthodox, and I had a question regarding the relations of opposition. So I was having discussions with a few Muslims, and like they hold to the premise that aseity is a divine property, or like it is intrinsic to like divine essence.
Yeah, that's called the eunomian premise, and there is no way to prove or demonstrate that. If you watch the debate between Dr. Bo Branson and Jake, the whole debate is over the eunomian premise, and the whole debate ends up being Dr. Branson showing through logic to Jake that there is no demonstration of that. Plus, it's a fallacy, because it's the same mistake of saying that all meat eaters are carnivores, but not all carnivores are meat eaters. So in other words, the fact that one member of a class possesses aseity, it doesn't follow that every member of a class must possess that to be in that class. So no, if aseity is the thing that picks out the Father, which is the Orthodox position, he's the one that is the self-existent one, the uncaused cause, and so forth, then it's a personal hypostatic property. It's not the property that picks out divinity proper.
Oh, okay, and that doesn't refute the idea that they're both co-equal, but them being co-equal is just in regards to the divinity, right?
Right. Well, Jesus says, for example, in John 5, all the works that the Father does, I do likewise. All that the Father has, he has given to the Son, right? So in other words, the Father conveys to the Son the same nature, but to be the self-existent, uncaused, unoriginate one is the personal property of the Father. It is not the property of the divine essence.
Okay, so just to piggyback off your point, so based on the argument the Eastern Orthodox proposes, and the way Muslims refute it, in a sense, if we were to hold a position they hold, then you could also argue that Allah's quote-unquote glory isn't divine, because that divine attribute doesn't have aseity, right?
Exactly, yeah. In fact, in that debate, Dr. Branson argues against Jake precisely that point, that do each of Allah's attributes possess aseity, or do they all possibly possess it? And the answer that Jake gives is no, and so Jake refutes his own position.
Yeah, so based on our argument, anything apart from Allah cannot be divine, as they do not have aseity, and that doesn't even make sense.
Right.
Okay, so just to what else was I going to say? I don't know if you know John 5:26 off your head, but it's the Father has life within himself, and then the Father also gives me life within myself. Mm-hmm. So what does that verse actually mean? Because aseity can an aseity be passed on to another person, or?
No, that's what I'm saying, is that in the Orthodox position of Trinitarian theology, aseity means self-existing, uncaused, unoriginate. Those are all what we call hypostatic properties that pick out the person of the Father. So it's unique to the person of the Father. It's not a property of the divine nature itself. And so when Jesus says that the Father gives him life, this is this is simply a restatement of what we call the eternal generation doctrine. So Jesus this is what Nicaea says, right? Nicaea says that the Father eternally generates a Son of his nature, which possesses the divine essence, right? But the Father's personal property of being the uncaused cause, or of being ase, is not transferable. Just like the personal property of being the Son is not transferable. Jesus doesn't make the Spirit his grandson or another. The Spirit is not Jesus' son, right? Because hypostatic properties are not transferable. But anything that is common is transferable, and thus Jesus gets all of the same common properties that the Father has in terms of nature. So this is why you have to distinguish nature and person in the Trinity. So all of the works, all the powers, all the attributes that are proper to the divine nature, Jesus gets from the Father. They're all communicated to him.
So there's nothing the Father can do that Christ can't, basically.
Except the Cappadocians say to be the cause.
Okay. And that's a hypostatic property, not something that actually has to... Okay, what else was I going to say?
Yeah, the Cappadocians are adamant that, this is why we don't believe in the Filioque, everything that the Father has, the Son has, except for being cause.
Yeah, and then the Son doesn't have and the Father doesn't have a human nature either, so do you hold to, the Eastern Orthodox hold to relative identity?
Well, this is a little more of a tricky area because we could say that in a sense there are relations, and you can identify the persons in a relations way, but it's, as Losky says, it's relations of origin. It is not relations of opposition. So I absolutely recommend reading the Losky paper. It's called Procession of the Holy Spirit in Orthodox Trinitarian Theology. Let me pull it up.
Okay.
Because it specifically addresses the Thomistic faulty theology of relations of opposition. And so you don't even have to get 3, 4, 5 pages into this famous essay before Losky is refuting the Thomistic idea.
So obviously, as an Eastern Orthodox, you obviously don't hold to Thomistic views, but you still hold to divine simplicity, I would presume.
Absolutely, yeah. In fact, we would argue that the Orthodox position is the one that upholds divine simplicity, and it's the Roman Catholic position that actually compromises and severs it.
Okay. Oh, and I've had a conversation with you, and you use this term to describe the distinction between the relations in the Godhead and the distinction between the Godhead and humanity. I think it was etogen. Like, I can't remember the actual word you used. Like, it's basically to explain how even though Jesus is subordinate to the Father in terms of relations, he still has sovereignty over all of creation. And then, like, I think it has something to do with Trinitarian economy about Ethan.
Well, so this is just in Orthodox theology. One of the first things we would say about how we go about naming God is that there's 2 different ways of naming God. The first is God in the intertrinitarian life. Okay, that's different than, it's not totally unrelated, but it's in ways distinct from how we relate or name God in terms of his relationship to creation. So this is economia versus the Trinity or theology proper. And so, for example, Maximus talks about this in the first 5 pages of the 200 chapters, where he says, can we call God actus purus or first cause? He says, yes, in one way we can. In another way we cannot. How is it? Well, the way that we can call God first cause is in relation to creatures. In that sense, God is the first cause of the created order and the created world, sure. But can we call God in himself, in the intertrinitarian life, pure act or first cause? Absolutely not, because it would be totally heterodox. It would reduce God to the Aristotelian dyad and lead to all kind of stupid heresies. So that's why actus purus is both true and false, depending upon how you name God. I mean, Maximus makes it very clear in those first 5 pages. Roman Catholics don't even pay attention to this. They just act like they have no idea what we're talking about. Does that make sense? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. And last question. This is the last question. So, in regards to the Aseity, of course, Jesus Christ is in an uncaused cause, but is Christ still a necessary existence by predication of the Father? Because I'm not sure if Eastern Orthodox holds to the view, but the whole idea that goodness has to be actualized and love has to be reciprocated. That's why the Son exists, because the love is reciprocated to the Son and the Son back to the Father. So even though Christ doesn't possess aseity, he can still be described as a necessary existence, right?
Yeah, well, this is, again, precisely in the way that I just described. Okay. When, for example, I think it's Oration 29, Nazianzus says that you can say that the Son is unoriginate when he's contrasted to creatures. You can call God actus purus in contrast to creatures. You can call the Trinity the monarchy of creation in contrast to creatures. That is distinct from how we name and predicate in the intertrinitarian life. And all the idiots on the internet confuse these two all the time and make this stupid mistake because they'll think that the entire Trinity in its intertrinitarian life is the monarch, is the first cause. Okay, so you're saying that the Son is the first cause in the Trinity? Obviously not. So you cannot name the intertrinitarian life the same equivalent way that you name God in contrast to creatures.
So basically the term, because before I inquired into Eastern Orthodox, I always used to hold the notion that God cannot really be a dualistic term, but it actually can be, because every form of language can be, because God isn't just used for the Father or the Son. God is used multiple times in
So let's look about unoriginate. In the Trinity, is the Son unoriginate? Absolutely not. That's a heresy. The Son is originate. He originates from the Father. But can you call the Son in contrast to the created order unoriginate? Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah,
it's in the Gregor Nazianzus orations. He says that very thing.
Okay, so I actually have to go. So as an inquiring Eastern Orthodox, what would you recommend to get more well versed in this theology, apart from the Bible, of course?
Well, I would start with reading something like the theological orations of Gregory Nazianzus. Of course, what are called the five are really important, but there's many, many more. Those are good. I would read On the Incarnation by St. Athanasius. I would read Basil against Eunomius, Basil on the Holy Spirit. I would read something like Losky's Mystical Theology of the Eastern Church. I would read Orthodox Dogmatic Theology by Pomazansky. I would get grounded in those kind of works first. Then I would read something like Byzantine Theology by Meyendorff. I would read the other Losky books, which are really good, like Vision of God, or any of the Losky books are good. And then I would branch out into maybe Staniloy's Orthodox Dogmatics, something like that.
Okay, thank you. If you're still up by the time I'm back, I'll request it again because I have other questions, but I have to go. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, hey, those are great questions. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Kay. Really good questions. And I love seeing that click with people, because so many people get caught up in gotchas and get confused. And, thank God in the last, the last couple weeks, I've had multiple Thomists and Catholics and people that were confused over these topics of relations of opposition or whatever actually go and read the frickin' Losky paper and understand what's being said. And it's beginning to click. So I'm glad to see that. Confused. What's up, man?
Hey, Jay. So my question is this. So a lot of the debates have been in the realm of the theological. And in talking to other Catholics or seeing the sense that prevails, it's sort of a wait and something's going to change there and sort all this stuff out. And they don't... or they also lack a sense of that theological understanding where you can really interface with them. Aside from something like that, what are the other approaches or other ways to talk to an individual about why Orthodoxy is correct compared to, say, Catholicism?
Well, I think if you look at somebody like Pajot, he has a very popular approach that's different than the polemical approach of what we do. So you could look at something like the arts. I think probably the degradation in the Western liturgical tradition, basically the loss of the Western liturgical tradition, the papacy not wanting to continue and foster the Latin Mass and their heritage. Those are probably good inroads. With Catholics who, don't really care about apologetics or logical issues or whatever. The arts, aesthetics, that's a key angle is what I'm saying. I'm trying to think of other... a lot of people prefer, more pastoral issues or questions, and so, or practical, maybe, male-female issues. So Father Moses' channel might be a better inroad for people who are interested in those practical types of topics, or Father Trenum's channel for dealing with a lot more of those practical questions. Those, and the way they approach is probably, what you're looking for.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, not everybody finds debate and, you know, logic and all that, which is fine. You know, everybody, we all have different gifts. We have different skill sets. So everybody contributes in different ways. Lightbender. It's a cool name.
Hello, can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
How you doing, Jay? I got a quick question for you here.
Yeah.
And forgive me if it's just like a shower thought from this morning. I'm an inquirer into Orthodoxy. I've been going to church off and on for about 2 years in New York and stuff like that, all over the place. In relation to the Trinity, and for that matter, any created category like male, female, father, son, or even like, you know, legs or hands.
Are you there? You got robot machine gun, bro. We can't hear you. Are you there?
Sorry, can you hear me? I got a phone call right in the middle.
Maybe call back in after your phone call. Anurav. We got attacked by an AI bot, bro.
Hello.
Hey.
How you doing, Jay? Nice to talk to you again. Actually, piggybacking off of like two guests ago with Kay, I had the same question about Aseity, but you kind of answered it. I just want to say, like, my framework as a Protestant was that Aseity is an intrinsic property to God, similar to omnipotence.
Wait, slow down. What? I didn't hear you.
I would say that before, my problem was that I would assume Aseity is an intrinsic property to God.
Right, this is a Protestant idea. This is like Reformation era Calvin type stuff.
Yeah, so I'm trying to unlearn that. In relation to the Trinity, my question is, how do we define what a person is?
The closest definition in the Orthodox theologians that you read, whether it's Cyril or whether it's Gregory Palamas, is that a person is a subject or an agent. And if you get to the time of the Fifth Ecumenical Council, it actually dogmatizes and it states explicitly that by hypostasis, we mean prosopon, we mean person, subject, or agent.
Okay, so would that mean that they have mind? They share the divine mind and will in the Trinity?
Yes, and that's why that's why mind and will are not properties of person, they're properties of nature, and so they're common to all three. So in other words, it's the subject that has the mind and the will. Just like in human persons, I am not as a person reduced to or equal to my mind or my will. My mind and my will are things that the subject or the person, Jay, has as part of human nature. That's why there's a distinction between nature and person, both in the Trinity, in Christ, and in human anthropology.
Okay. So I guess, and then that makes me ask, my next thing is, something I've heard in support of the Filioque is the difference between, can you just say what the difference is between procession and begotten?
No, the Cappadocians point out that what the difference is, we do not know, but that there is a difference we do know.
Okay, so then for the Filioque, it's like, okay, so if there's that, then what's the difference between the Son and the Spirit if they're both being sourced in the Father?
Well, the one is the Son, and his difference is that he became incarnate and revealed himself to us. And so the way that we know that he's different is because he's revealed as the second person of the Godhead, Jesus, walking around, talking, teaching us all these things. He performs the role that's specific and unique to him in redemption. And the Holy Spirit is the third person, the one that he sends, who performs his unique roles and actions in redemption. And so we don't need an exhaustive scholastic definition of what the words or the difference is to know the persons, because there's an element of mystery here that we're not revealed what those things are. That's why the Cappadocians actually castigate the Eunomians and the Arians for seeking to exhaustively understand and define the difference between procession and generation, which is what leads to their heresy.
Yeah. Okay, and then my kind of I think it's my last. It's so something I've gotten a lot recently. I never really considered. Because I think I know the answer, but I just want to hear your opinion. Is why three then? Why three persons? Like, why not seven? Why not two? Like, why is there a reason that number three is significant, or it's just I answer just because that's where it is, you know?
I mean, at the most basic level, that's just who God is.
Yeah.
Right. So God doesn't answer to any higher standard of like, because God has to fit into this or that scheme. Right. It's just the way that God's self-declaration, self-revelation is that that's who he is, and that's always how he's been. But there are places where the Cappadocians and Maximus speculate as to why it might be three, and their answers are things like, well, if you think about ancient notions of numerics, a pure monad has certain elements to it that are deficient, and the next move is a dyad, but a dyad still has certain deficiencies and opposition in it. And the next term is the triad, and the triad transcends the dyad, and so it's the first of the numbers that is unique in that way that it transcends unity and a dyad state and refers back to itself. Now, whether you find that a convincing argument, that's up to you, but that's the type of argument that the Cappadocians and Maximus make from ancient number theory.
Yeah, and so would you say that, like, for example, when we talk about God being like creator, loving, merciful, would you say he always was God always a creator even before creation?
This is the distinction between first and second actuality. This is a distinction between a power and actualizing that power. So from all eternity, absolutely, God had the power of creating. He did not always from all eternity create, because that would mean there's an eternal world, and we would be in the originist problem at that point.
Okay, so how is that different, though?
That, by the way, refutes Thomism and shows that we don't believe that God is reduced to pure act, because no Thomist would say that God possesses both first and second actuality, or that God possesses unrealized powers.
So a criticism I have of Islam is that God was not always loving, and he needs creation to actually, like...
Well, in Islam, God is never loving.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying, like, in a purely one person, one being God, at least with the Trinitarian model, you know, love is eternal because the three persons.
Right. Yeah, we've made this argument too basically any Unitarian system has this problem. Yeah.
So why can't the Muslims, for example, say that God always had the potential to love? And then, like, the same argument for you with the Creator, God always had the potential to love. Therefore, it works out that you don't need a Trinitarian model for God to always be loving.
Well, because they would then be positing first and second actuality, or potentia, or powers in God that aren't actualized, which I'm not sure that Muslims even go into that, because every time I bring this up, this is what I brought up in the Ezra Rashid debate, and he never understood what I was asking. So if they want to deny this would at that point I would turn the Thomist dilemma on them and be like, well, do you believe that Allah has unrealized powers, and so if he has unrealized powers, then he would undergo some kind of change by having not created to then creating, right? Because they have a very similar kind of scheme about what's perfection in Allah as Roman Catholics and Thomists do about the metaphysics of perfection. So that's what I was doing in the Ezra Rashid debate, because I was trying to get him to admit that if Allah is perfect, then how is he perfect if he's not even created yet? Does that make sense?
Yeah, but so they can't use the same potential argument that we would use?
No, they would have to admit, like, essence energy distinction, stuff like that.
Okay. Well, that makes so we always say God is creator because he always had the potential to do it, and it's actualized in the moment of creation.
Yeah, I mean, and this is why Basil says, the powers of God are infinite. We don't even know all the powers of God.
Okay.
And you can phrase the question to a Thomist differently and say, does God have the ability to create a world where there's no Pope and no Thomas Aquinas? Yes. Did he do that? No. Oh, okay. So then God didn't actualize all possibilities that he has in his power.
So we would say that he does actualize all the possibilities.
No.
Oh, we would say he doesn't because
he has free will. He doesn't have to exercise every power that he has. Okay, and Basil says his powers are infinite.
Okay,
Infinite
so,
is many. So.
Yeah. That was my.
But none of that works if God is reduced to pure act, as Thomas say.
I see what you're saying now. Alrighty, I'm gonna sit with that for a bit, and I'll come back next time to see.
Yeah, no, those are great questions.
All right, thank you, Jay.
Absolutely, anytime. Really good questions. Marcus. By the way, this was a passage I was looking for in the Minor Prophets, Malachi 3. Behold, I send my messenger, he will prepare the way before the Lord, who will come into his temple, even the messenger of the covenant. Right? So it's John the Baptist that is the messenger that prepares the way for the Lord, and that's why he comes in the spirit and power of Elijah. What's up, man? You got to unmute.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, hi. I was wondering what you think about Halloween as an Orthodox, because I asked my priest, and he said it's a celebration of demonic powers. So I'm wondering what you, as an Orthodox, would think about someone celebrating Halloween.
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on what you mean by celebrate. I mean, I don't think it's a big deal to wear a costume and go to a party or something like that. The way Paul talks in 1 Corinthians is that he says that these things really have no power over us. But, if it causes offense then to other people or people in your family or your friends or other Christians, Orthodox or something, then, Paul says out of love, concede to their weakness. But no, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with wearing a costume. But if you mean by celebrating it, like setting aside time to honor this demonic type stuff, no, I think that's ridiculous. But you could use it as a time to pray for the dead or something like that. That's my take on it.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, good questions. What's up, Dave?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey.
My question is with the essence energy distinction, and my question is basically, how does eternal energies interact with the temporal type world?
How, we don't know exactly. I mean, it's something that we believe on the basis of revelation, but we're not told exactly how this happens. It's kind of a mystery. It's the same way as how do the divine energies in Christ interact with and interpenetrate his human nature? How, we don't know, but that it occurs, we know.
Okay. All right.
I mean, I'm not trying to be dismissive. It's just sort of do you want maybe can you restate it or be more precise in terms of what exactly you're looking for?
Well, when I was reading Rowan Williams. I was reading an article about Rowan Williams, and one of his objections to the essence energies distinction was basically how the energies interact with the world, and would that necessitate an eternal world because they're eternal energies or something? No,
well, this is addressed in the very point, like I was saying a minute ago, which is that there's different types of energies, as we say. There's what are called the energies that are the case from all eternity, like love or glory, and then other energies that are only related to the temporal order, such as divine providence, right? Or Jesus walking on water, right? That's a divine energy that was specific to one time and one place. It required a created order for that to occur. And so Jesus was not from all eternity walking on water, like idiot Roman Catholics think. So there's different types of energies, as Palamas says in the Triads. So we have to make that distinction. No, there's also the distinction between first and second actuality, which is that God can eternally have powers that he doesn't always actualize. So that gets us out of the eternal worlds dilemma of Origenism. But also, yes, God has other actions or energies or powers that he was always eternally actualizing, like divine love, divine glory, right? These were always operant in the Trinity and being communicated amongst the persons in the Trinity without regard to any creation. Creation wasn't necessary or didn't need to be the case, right, for the Father and the Son and the Spirit to love each other for all eternity.
So, just so I have it right, there are specific energies that are temporal and some are eternal.
Well, the energies themselves are not temporal, no. They're uncreated, but they're in time and space and only relate to the created order, such as walking on water or, divine providence, right? God eternally has the power of divine providence, but he has not eternally actualized the power of divine providence until he created a world over which he's provident.
Okay, I think I understand. All right, I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, those are great questions, and in fact, they relate back to the previous guy's question about, why it wouldn't lead to eternal world. Again, if you collapse the energies into the essence, you get either modal collapse or you get this eternal world's origin problem. This is what we've been harping on I've been harping on that for over 10 years. Others have been way longer than me, obviously, but, we still have to repeat this. Lord Mullen, what's up, man? What's up? We're approaching 1,000 over here for a second there on YouTube. If you guys want to call in on YouTube, if you have challenges, debates, questions, topics, issues you want to set me straight on, call in right there. What's up, man?
Hey, Jay.
Yep.
I just have a question in regards to one of your responses to an argument that I heard. It was the atheist argument of saying that life is meaningless, and you kind of retorted it by saying if life is meaningless, then today is meaningless, and if today is meaningless, then your argument is meaningless.
Right.
But isn't this a word concept fantasy between like overarching telos versus like meaning in the terms of intelligibility?
No, because in the grand scheme, it still is meaningless. So if you can't ground meaning in anything outside of localized physical phenomena, you can't ground meaning at all.
But it was in response to like the statement itself being meaningless. How is it the same thing as like an overarching purpose to the universe? I feel like it's different, is it not?
But if there's not an overriding purpose, there's no purpose in the particulars, is the point. Have you read the article on demarcation?
No.
So there's a Russ Mannion article that's really good on this, and it's on demarcation and the signs of nature. You can find it right here. It's called On Demarcation of the Signs of Nature at Energetic Procession. And if you read that article, if you get down to the bottom, it makes the point that I made a couple days ago on a live stream, which is that there's you've really only got two options when it comes to meaning and signifier in linguistic philosophy. Either the world is an accident and everything is dysteleological and accidental, and if that's the case, then nothing has meaning, no words mean at all, or the world is intentional, purposive, and there is telos, and words and signifiers do have meaning.
Okay. I'll read that article, but that does make sense.
Yeah. If you look at the last few paragraphs, it actually lays out this very point that answers your question. It's a great question. I'm not trying to be dismissive. And this is a really good article for kind of utilizing linguistic philosophy in the domain of transcendental argumentation to show that if the atheist worldview is true, he can't make sentences, as you've heard me say for many, many years. Lightbender. And what I mean by that, all you low-tier atheists, is not that you physically can't make a sentence and understand the meaning of a sentence. I mean that your sentences don't make sense in your worldview. You can't ground or make sense of language and predication is what I mean. What's up, man?
Hey, Jay, sorry about that. I got a phone call that nuked my last question. So in regards to God, this morning I was thinking, I'm inquiring into Orthodoxy. I've been going to church. I've been going to liturgies and talking to other converts and people, and I'm very interested, and I feel the drive to that. But I have this question, this shower thought this morning. In regards to God and the Trinity before creation, what is any created category before creation, such as like a father-son relationship or having human traits such as hands or feet, or a father without a created female like a mother?
Well, you got it backwards. They're not created categories. They're uncreated categories. The created ideas of father and son are grounded on the uncreated eternal relationships of father and son.
Okay, got it. Because I know Muslims believe that God is completely unlike creation. So I was trying to
which
separate that
undercuts their
idea.
entire religion when they try to talk about him.
Right. And I have another question, because I was also thinking about, Jesus walking in the garden and making noise and being heard by Adam and Steve. Sorry, I got the Skittles New Translation. That was a pre-incarnated Jesus, right? So I was wondering, was he an energetic manifestation walking through the garden that could be heard?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So that would be
and
kind of like...
how he did that, we are not told. But that he did it, we are told.
And that would be the same as Moses having a meal with him on Sinai and stuff like that?
Yep.
Okay. And then also one other thing, like the dove, the Holy Spirit is a dove, obviously not like a incarnated dove, right?
No, that's an energetic manifestation proper to the Spirit.
Okay. All right, that kind of clears it up for me a little bit.
It is not the later icon synods discuss this and explain that whether it's the dove or the tongues of fire at Pentecost, those are energies proper to the Spirit. They're not the hypostasis of the Spirit, because the Spirit does not become incarnate, nor does the Father become incarnate.
Got it. All right, excellent. And then I have one other question. I don't know, you probably addressed this plenty of times. It has to do with free will. And I just believe that, God is an all-knowing, infinite being. And I just can't shake the idea personally that, being that God knows everything, my entire, every decision I make, and therefore an extension, my will is already exists within the mind of God and prior to, therefore my fate and my judgment, right?
Well, knowing all things does not entail that God is the cause of all things. So that's the mistake there.
Okay.
If you read John Damascus, Book 1 of On the Orthodox Faith, he explains how God created a world where there really are secondary causes. So God is not the immediate direct cause of every event, even if he knows every event.
Right.
In other words, I might know that my neighbors are going to rob a bank, and then they rob the bank. That doesn't mean that I caused them to rob the bank because I had the knowledge of it.
Right. But I guess in this case, in your analogy, it would be as though, you created your neighbors from scratch in every decision and act they make in their whole life, right? So...
Well, but again, being the creator and the first cause does not mean that I am also the immediate direct cause of every action, because I can create a world where there are secondary causes. So the argument that you're making hinges on there not being any secondary causes. And I mean, that might sound like philosophical, but no, this is actually, Muslims actually reject this position, because they believe that if there are secondary causes, it detracts from Allah's sovereignty. And so to be consistent, they believe in a form of occasionalism, which is that every single event, every single second is directly caused by God. But why can't God create a world where there are real secondary causes?
Right. I guess the entire... none of this would make any sense in a judgment or anything without us having free will. Everything hinges on free will. So, but I just had trouble shaking that one idea there. So,
well, again, to know a thing does not necessarily mean you're the cause of the thing.
Right.
And that's why we do not say that God is the cause of all events.
Got it.
Yeah.
And then...
I'm sorry, I cut you out too quick. Did you have one more? You can come back, dude. I thought you were done. Mikhail? Mikhail?
Hi, can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Just had a simple question. How would you defend the historicity of the Pentateuch against textual criticism and the hypotheses that they all developed from earlier traditions or whatever?
Well, the only way to really argue against that is because that position is based on unbelieving presuppositions our position is based on believing presuppositions, is that you have to compare and contrast the presuppositions. And most of the time, they don't really have a justification for their so-called textual science, their empirical claims. If you look into textual criticism, higher criticism, going back to Wellhausen, it's very easy to see that Wellhausen has an agenda. He's not a neutral scholar. So most higher criticism is built on the Enlightenment idea of scholarly academic neutrality. So you can prove and demonstrate very easily that that doesn't exist. So if reality is theory-laden, then they're presenting a deceptive sales pitch when they try to present their position as neutral. Also, you can show that a lot of their arguments just presuppose the thing in question, the idea that because different names of God are used, well, that must be different authors. Well, maybe there's theological reasons why one author chose different names in different sections. So you see how, like, they have these assumptions that, well, clearly this is the Yahweh's tradition because they're using the name Yahweh. Well, that's just based on an assumption. It's based on the assumption that there wasn't an author who wanted to use different names for theological signification, for theological meanings. And then they'll say stuff like, well, that's just assuming, that the texts are inspired and all this stuff. Well, that's the thing in question. So you'll never get anywhere with throwing academia back and forth with those people. And also you can point out that textual criticism itself undergoes all of these fads. The fad of 50 years ago and Q and all this kind of stuff, when it came to the Gospels, they don't believe that anymore. That's not even popular anymore. So why should we trust this thing that's shifting sands and comes and goes with all kinds of different levels of popularity? How is that supposed to be reliable? Jamal, what's up? You gotta unmute. Guys, if you want to support the stream, you can do so via Super Chats. Super Chats are done through Streamlabs, and the link is pinned. I'll also put the link in the chat here for you guys. If you want to support me via Super Chat right there. I am still sick, so I have to kind of nibble on solid foods here and there that I can take. If you want to call in, there's the link right there on Twitter to call in on through an X-Space. That got dropped off, so let's see. Mark.
Yo.
Hey.
Hey, my friend was on yesterday. He was asking you about Donatism. And we had talked a little bit about that afterward.
Yeah.
Oh, you can hear me? Okay. And he wanted me to come on and talk with you. So here I am. About as far as, like rebaptism within the Orthodox Church.
Okay.
So, yeah, I wouldn't necessarily go all out and just say Orthodox or Donatists, right? Because I think a little of the nuance was lost there when he came on and was talking about that.
So let's just make this really clear. So if I go to Athanasius in his Festal Letters and he says that the Eucharist eaten outside of the church, the Orthodox Church, or communion is a dead meal and doesn't give you any grace, is that Donatism?
Not necessarily. So it all depends on, wouldn't it all depend on the validity of the apostolic succession and the holy orders of the priests who are consecrating that Eucharist?
Well, obviously they have holy orders if they have the attempt to have the divine liturgy outside the church.
Okay. So then it comes down to whether or not it's devoid of grace, right?
Well, what it comes down to is that you have a mistaken idea as to what Donatism is. And so this is because a lot of times that people hear about the Orthodox view, they think that it's Donatist because it tends to say that sacraments outside of the Orthodox Church are graceless. That's not Donatism. Donatism precisely is the efficacy of the sacraments depends on the worthiness of the minister. And so in other words, any sin that a minister might commit, including having a dirty thought at the point of your baptism, would invalidate your baptism. That's Donatism. Orthodox sacramentology is more precise, that we're not saying that the sins of the priest have anything to do with whether or not your baptism is gracious per se. We're saying that certain things are necessary as presuppositions to have an Orthodox sacrament. And one of those things is the Orthodox faith. That's where we differ with the Augustinian position of ex opere operato, which says that even if you lose the faith, or even if you're an atheist or a Satanist, you can still perform certain rituals and rites such as baptism. Or the Roman Catholic position that if I get ordained and that day become a Satanist for the rest of my life, I can still confect the Eucharist and blaspheme it as a Satanist. We think that's absurd, and we are not Donatists because we're consistent in saying that that's an absurd position.
Okay, so then in that case then, so would you say that all out, like, let's just use Roman Catholic because that's an easy example, right? So would you say that all baptisms within the Roman Catholic Church are devoid of grace?
Yes.
Okay, so then wouldn't that mean then that there's vast amounts of converts within like the Russian Orthodox Church and certain dioceses of the OCA where you just have unbaptized converts because they're accepting converts in?
No, because I believe that when they're received into the church, whatever defects are lacking are made up for by their reception into the church. So I don't believe that God is a legalistic bean counter. It's the Roman Catholic view that actually believes it's the Augustinian position that makes God into this absurd legalist, because if you don't say the words correctly in the Roman Catholic position, it's all invalidated. That's the legalistic position, not our position.
Okay.
Have you seen the recent Arizona story about the priest who his entire diocese for the last 30 years are all invalid because he said the wrong words?
No, I haven't.
Okay, it's a very famous, popular Roman Catholic story going around for the last few years in Arizona. Go look it up. That's legalism. The idea that God requires an atheist or a Muslim to baptize me, that's legalism. That's your position.
I'm not Catholic, and I'm more exploring this and trying to.
Okay, I thought you were Roman Catholic. My mistake.
No, I'm not Catholic. I'm discerning denominations right now. Like I'm more convinced of Anglicanism, but like I'm not fully decided on any one thing. But
Anglicanism?
Yeah, I mean, so yeah.
You want a good trans bishop? Is that what you want?
Well, I mean, obviously 80% of the Anglican community. Well, I'm not going to come on and like argue Anglicanism at the moment because I haven't even, like I said, I haven't even landed on one. And my friend Moore wanted me to come on and talk with you about the Donatism thing.
Okay.
But just to make sure that I understand what you're saying correctly, so essentially it doesn't really matter whether or not someone's baptized or not coming back into coming into the Orthodox Church.
No, they should be baptized. I didn't say it doesn't matter. I said that they should be baptized if there was a situation where, it was totally out of accord, the ritual wasn't even done correctly. It's in the Orthodox Church, it's to be determined on a local basis by the local episcopate. Now, not every local episcopate in the Orthodox Church, unfortunately, does this in a proper, faithful way. Sometimes they're ecumenists, sometimes they're lazy. But the point is that it's not, ironically, our position is not the one that's rigid and rigorous. Our position is the one that's actually flexible. It's the Roman Catholic legalist position of ex opere operato that's the real source of the problems here. Our position, I think, is perfectly reasonable. It's supposed to be left up to the bishop to determine. But a lot of times, what complicates this is that modern-day post-Novus Ordo Catholicism has gone so far from what's even remotely traditional. You've got Novus Ordo priests baptizing people in the name of the land, the sea, and the air. You've got Novus Ordo people baptizing people in the name of the Mother Earth, literally. So in those cases, and because it's getting so hard to determine whether there was any Trinitarian form at all, a lot of Orthodox churches are saying, and people are beginning to say, it might be wise to just baptize them all to make sure, because things are getting so crazy. I think that's a wise discipline. So you can't boil all this down into either ors. There's a lot of nuance, and there's a lot of practical, pragmatic questions at play in this as well.
Okay. That makes sense. Like from an outside perspective, it does seem like this is something that would need to be settled because there's a lot of inconsistency across, the different metropolitans.
Well, you're not going to but that quote inconsistency is precisely what we call economia. And so we don't need you, an outsider, telling us what we need to do as the one universal standard. Who are you to tell us what's supposed to be our standard? You're not the judge of our inconsistency when we believe that there can be economia.
Okay, I mean, that's valid.
Do you think you're going to find that consistency in Anglicanism?
I mean, that depends. So, and like, even if I can't find that in Anglicanism, that doesn't necessarily take the focus off of the fact that it exists within Orthodoxy, right? So, like,
That what exists?
Really, like, the fact that that's an inconsistency, right? So,
I didn't say it's an inconsistency. I said it was differing approach. It's called economia. Do you even know what that is?
Yeah, like household, family, basically, right?
No, you don't know so you don't know what that is.
Or economy, sorry, yeah, economy, right.
Yeah, so in other words, as I said a minute ago, the local bishop is supposed to be able to determine when and where and how you apply the canons. This is a canonical canon law question as to how people are received. And different people are received in different ways because people's cases are different. So, for example, if a monophysite is baptized in the exact orthodox way that we believe is the way that would be done, right? If that monophysite person renounces their heresy, many bishops can and have decided to receive them without rebaptizing or, quote, baptizing them. Because if the ritual is done correctly, then what's the impediment is the heresy. Once the heresy is removed, the baptism becomes efficacious when they join the church.
Okay. So then that is where you have an entire, an entire church within Orthodoxy. I don't know what the exact correct term for that is, but, you have the Russian Orthodox.
You're talking about jurisdictions.
Okay. When you have a specific jurisdiction that, with a broad brush says we recognize Roman Catholic holy orders, and so they don't practice, they don't baptize converts from Catholicism.
You're missing the point, though. Recognizing does not necessarily say that those things are gracious. It's saying that the ritual is done correctly, and when they join the Orthodox Church, the impediments to the grace are removed. By the way, did you know that's actually the Augustinian position? So even though we disagree about ex opere operato, nobody in the modern Roman Catholic or Protestant world or Anglican world actually follows the Augustinian position, which we are actually on this point closer to, which says that the impediment to the grace is the heresy. So even though Augustine believes that there's valid baptisms and even gracious baptisms outside the church, if you persist in the heresy, it doesn't get you anywhere. So we're actually closer to the Augustinian position on that point than anyone else is.
Yeah, and that much makes sense. So because I get,
so you're confusing different jurisdictions having decentralized different approaches to as if there's theological error and confusion everywhere.
Well, then maybe help me parse through this then, because the whole thing is that, so I get the fact that, the grace becomes efficacious or whatever the exact particular language you used was there, when they come in. And, it seems like the standard way of receiving heretics is confession, absolution, right? You accept them in. And
no, that's not true. So you don't know the canon law, the ancient canons. The canons of the Sixth Council, for example, give us different strictures and different approaches to different heretics depending upon their case. So this is why it's a canon law issue. It's very complex at times because of all the different sects. This wouldn't be complex if we didn't have 1,000 different crazy heresies doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And if we didn't have nuanced, complex issues in people's lives and in church history. So again, the Orthodox position is flexible on how to receive converts and heretics and schismatics from any different group. And if we take in a Roman Catholic and the bishops determine that, they don't have to be whatever because the rituals were done correctly or whatever. That does not say or necessitate we're saying that they had the grace that whole time. It just simply means that the ritual is done correctly, it does not need to be redone, and the impediment to the grace is now removed.
Yeah, I get that, and I don't want to come across like I understand the position that it would be nuanced and you take it on a case-by-case basis. It's a tenable. Like I totally.
Do you know what canon law is?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah,
so Orthodox canon law is different from Roman Catholic canon law, and it's different from Anglican canon law. And so because it's nuanced and complex, and it goes back through all the 7 ecumenical councils and all the different canons that they have about the reception of heretics, there's a lot of confusion about different heretical groups. That's the source of confusion, is all these heretics. So that's why it's up to the local bishops to make those determinations. And because it's decentralized, it can lead to or give the impression that, oh, you guys don't have one consistent position on how to receive people. Ha ha ha, we got you. But in reality, the Roman Catholic position, because it thinks and prefers to have this single unitary position on this, actually leads to more stupid positions, like the idea that atheists and Muslims can baptize people.
Yeah, I guess I think my underlying point might be getting lost here then, or maybe.
Okay, go ahead. Explain. Then tell me what your underlying point is.
So, because like I was saying, I get like the fact of dealing with it on case by case basis. You know, you evaluate each person like a Miaphysite or a Monophysite that you call them. You accept them because, you know, as long as you can validate that the actual formula used and the underlying, you know, the consideration, but you still obviously have to accept them in, and at that point it becomes gracious. But that's a case by case basis. That's what you're saying right now. But you're saying actually case by case on each bishop, like an entire region.
That's what economia means.
Yeah, that just leads to then.
There's not a universal application of the canons in the Orthodox Church. Economia means that the bishops apply the canons to the situation.
But so that's just essentially that's saying that it's not a settled matter on this.
No, your assumption is that it's possible to have a settled matter on a complex matter that is precisely left up to a decentralized church in the Orthodox world. And the very question that you have is assuming the Roman Catholic tendency towards there being a universal position on this, which I'm saying is what led to all their stupid stuff.
Yeah.
So when this comes up in the Augustinian disputes, this eventually leads the Roman position to dogmatizing 3 things necessary for a sacrament. Do you know what those are?
No, not off the top of my head.
Matter, form, and intention. So that means that anytime matter, form, and intention are there, you have the genuine celebration of the sacrament and the grace. That's why it leads to the position that because baptism is necessary, if I don't have a Roman Catholic or even an Orthodox person around, if I want to become a Catholic, I can go to an atheist and I can get the atheist to baptize me. This is because of the seeking for a universal resolution to a complex issue that's economia.
But matter, form, and intention are either there or not there, right? So,
But you just now learned that. You don't even know how. But that's itself leads to the stupidity of this position because how does?
I mean, I don't
how does an atheist? Do you know what intention means in that matter, form, and intention?
Yeah, like what? Did you actually have, you know, intending to properly perform the sacrament? Did you have the proper understanding of, you know, like a Mormon might say Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, but they don't actually mean a true Trinitarian form. Is that what that's?
Well,
correct?
It's not even that because they realize that an atheist is not going to have the intention of true belief in the Trinity. And so what the Roman Catholic Church dogmatized was the intention to do what the church does, which is retarded. But so in other words, if an atheist, so now if I'm going to get baptized by an atheist, all I need the atheist to do is to baptize me in the form of the Trinity, for him to intend to do what the church does. And this is absurd.
And that's why I didn't include. I tried to include, you know, a more digestible example than an atheist, obviously, because I don't think an atheist could give a proper baptism. But so let's make it.
The reason I brought that up was to say that the idea that you can have a universal answer to these types of church law questions is precisely what led to the definition of matter, form, and intention, and trying to give a scientific universal definition of when a sacrament is practiced. That's my point.
Okay. I don't want to take up too much time here, so I'll just try and get even more specific just for one last example and see if we can get anywhere with this. But I mean, obviously, you know, we're going to end up with, you have your opinion, I have mine, and maybe, you know, maybe I'll learn something that I didn't realize here. But
well, I mean, I'm also going to demonstrate that what you're saying is false. I'm happy to do that too.
That's totally fine. I mean, if you can't, like, that's awesome. I mean, I care about the truth, obviously. So
well, then why would you be attracted to Anglicanism? Let's get to that in a minute, but go ahead with what you're saying.
Okay, we can totally get to that. So, okay, so let's get really microscopic here. Let's say an individual priest baptizes two people. One of those people goes and joins the Greek Orthodox Church. The other one joins the OCA. The OCA does not rebaptize him. I think they do case by case. They're not broad strokes as much. But so, and the Greek Orthodox, I think they rebaptize all Catholics, right? I could be wrong on that.
I already said that the grace of God makes up for whatever's lacking. Pretty much all Orthodox people are going to say that, even if you're a rigorist.
So then there is something that could be lacking in how converts are being received into the Orthodox Church.
I already said that you can have liberal ecumenist bishops who do not operate faithfully, but that's a different question from whether there's economia. So in other words,
seems
so
like a
can
distraction,
hold on.
though.
So can economia be abused? Absolutely, of course.
Okay. So then, yeah, I mean, that's essentially so that's what, I mean, this isn't like the biggest thing that would scandalize me from Orthodoxy, but I would say this is something that's scandalous from, I know you don't care too much what someone on the outside would say about that, but like just from trying to be honest about, like, that is something that does seem to scandalize some people on the outside. But I get there has to be nuance. I totally respect that. But what I'm saying is this is a singular priest baptizes these two people. One area they declare, yes, that, his, it was properly administered. So they accept this person in with chrismation and, it becomes gracious at that point. The other person is rebaptized, is like either the baptism was valid or it wasn't, right? Or not valid. You don't want to use valid. Either it was correctly given.
No, I don't have a problem with
wasn't,
valid.
right?
It's just that valid is ambiguous because sometimes people think that necessitates that it also possesses the grace.
Okay, so it was either valid or it wasn't, and in one case it's taken to be valid, and the other it isn't. So obviously, yeah, God is going to have grace with, an individual priest or bishop is going to, we can't have perfect knowledge of whether or not someone received the sacrament properly. My concern is when you have an entire jurisdiction with a sweeping, yes, they're valid, or no, they're not valid. And then there's also ones, like the nuanced position seems the most tenable. And it just, from the outside, it seems like that is a pretty important thing to be able to settle, is how you receive converts, even if that's like a case-by-case basis.
Well, I mean, if you know the history of the church, you'll know that the church, in many controversies or in disputed issues, many different jurisdictions will take different sides and different positions and institute different policies. So what? How does that?
But then if it's a big enough issue, then an ecumenical council is gathered so that it can be settled.
If it's a big enough issue, yeah. But I mean, we've had the flexibility about the reception of converts for a long time.
Yeah, to me, that just seems like that's a pretty important thing to have figured out. But I understand we're probably not going to be able to take this point much further.
Why are we supposed to think that you are the one that determines what the most important thing for the Orthodox Church to figure out? You haven't even figured out which church you believe in yet, but you're going to come tell us what the most important things that we have to have solidified is. It's just arrogance.
I'm not telling you.
You just did. What do you mean? That's what you just argued.
I'm saying this is the perception that it comes across to me as. It seems like it would be important. I understand I don't have holy orders. I'm not someone of authority to be able to call a council. So yeah, like I could just shut up and never talk about these things, but I'm going to.
Well, but I mean, when you get into church history, you're going to realize that it doesn't matter which of the communions you choose. Like each of these communions has difficult, challenging periods all throughout church history, and even in whichever church communion you choose to join. Do you think that Anglicanism is going to be immune from the kinds of questions that you're raising about Orthodoxy? Like these are pretty universal types of issues and questions. And so the idea that I'm going to make my decisions based on the ones that I arbitrarily decide ought to have the universal answer to certain questions, to me seems like an absurd picking and choosing about how you're going to pick the real church.
I mean, not at all. Obviously, it's not. I don't think I'm going to find that anywhere. That's why I think Anglicanism, in that sense, with branch theory, it recognizes the messiness of church history and the fact that it is difficult to simply pin.
How does it? That wouldn't prove branch theory. I mean, that would just prove that there's canonical issues in every church. But why a canonical issue is not a dogmatic issue?
Yeah, well, yeah, because it hasn't been turned into dogma yet. So
well, no, I would say that maybe, but like the dogmas of the church in their creedal sense have already been solidified, and that's why it's easy to demonstrate that the Anglican Church does not teach what was solidified in the first 7 centuries.
I mean, obviously, I would disagree with. Well, I mean, it depends on if you're talking.
How many churches are there? There's one Holy Catholic and Apostolic Church, and you're saying that no, it's actually they're split into a bunch of branches.
I mean, yeah, I would say from what it seems like from history is that they're like the Great Schism is a very difficult. It's not like where you have the Nestorians break off and over time it becomes very clear which one is which, you know, like.
Well, the problem with this is that when you go to Ephesus and you read the way that Ephesus speaks of the Nestorians, how do they interpret the church and the people that are no longer in it?
I mean, I imagine they said something along the lines of that they're no longer within the church.
Exactly. So that refutes the branch theory right there.
Well, the problem is that what I was saying is that with the Nestorians, it becomes very clear which is the real church, right? It becomes very clear after enough centuries of time, but we're, 1,000 years past the Great Schism. It's still incredibly difficult for people to recognize both of these massive institutions, which one is the correct one.
I don't think it's very, that's a subjective, maybe you think it's difficult. I think a lot of people do find it pretty simple to, do you mean between, you say great institutions about Rome?
I'm saying big institutions. Yes, they're both very big.
But you're saying that it's neither Rome or Orthodoxy; it's Anglicanism. And I don't understand. I don't understand your answer. Huh?
Anglicanism doesn't say that Rome and the Orthodoxy are invalid churches. That's the whole thing of branch theory. That is, they are all.
It's a ridiculous position because it assumes that none of the positions are actually the Orthodox Church. There is no Orthodox church.
That's a subjective opinion.
Now it's so every position is so every opinion is a subjective opinion now. So now you're a relativist.
No, that's not at all. That's completely straw man.
How is that? You just said it's suddenly a subjective opinion. How did you get to that?
Well, because you're saying,
you just admitted that Ephesus teaches that there's one visible church and that the Nestorians are out of it. So you're saying, shut up. You said that that's how Ephesus understood itself in the church, right?
Yeah, correct.
Oh, okay. So you do not believe in the ecclesiology of Ephesus.
No, I agree. At the time, there was the church
so at the time, when it evolves, was branch theory true at that time?
Yeah, because it was in the trunk form.
Wait a minute. Branch theory was true when Ephesus was not operating on the basis of branch theory.
I wouldn't expect anyone to think that there was branches when there was no branch yet.
When did the branches happen?
I would say the easiest to point to would be the Great Schism, and that's.
How is that not arbitrary and subjective? So everybody, and let me ask you this: did anybody understand any branch theory at that time? So you believe in the evolution of doctrine?
Evolution.
So nobody had a coherent ecclesiology until the schism?
No, I think that it was. That's like saying nobody had a clear.
That's what you just argued, Goofus. You just said that they didn't know yet about branch theory, and they didn't think there was a branch theory. But by the time of the schism, now branch theory becomes true.
Well, it's the same as plenty of people did not know about.
So you're saying they didn't understand ecclesiology and was defective until there was a schism. That's a stupid position.
As much as the fathers prior to Nicaea didn't know about the Trinity, there was still...
The fathers of Nicaea didn't know about the Trinity? What are you talking about?
The fathers before, I said. So
they did know the Trinity, so what are you talking about?
They did, but there's a confusion around certain terms, like where you see being and person are not used fully consistently by the fathers.
No, that's a false analogy because they're still Trinitarian. The people at Ephesus are still conceiving of a visible single institution as the church. And you're saying that was a perfectly correct ecclesiology until there was a great schism. And now it's no longer the case that there's a single visible institution. That's evolution of doctrine. That's why you're a heretic.
Because no, it's not evolution. It's simply what existed at the time.
No, it's an evolution of doctrinal truth on ecclesiology. You're saying that it wasn't the case that branch theory was true for the first 1,000 years. Then in 1054, suddenly because of a heresy, branch theory becomes true. That's what you're saying.
No, I would say that, like I said, it's true regardless. It was a trunk at the time.
But the church didn't. So Christ didn't give to the church the mind of the church to accurately understand for the first 1,000 years that there's one Holy Catholic Apostolic Church, and it doesn't mean branch theory.
There was one Holy Catholic Apostolic Church at the time.
So you're a sophist now because you're saying that by the time of the schism, there's no longer one Holy Catholic Apostolic Church.
I would say there is, but they're no longer.
But now you've redefined it to be not the ecclesiology that they had for the first 1,000 years. So you believe in evolution of doctrine.
It's simply the church came into schism. They were no longer in communion with each other.
So now they have a new understanding of ecclesiology called branch theory. Which, by the way, did anyone at that time teach branch theory?
I mean, I'm not.
Did anyone at that time teach branch theory?
Probably not.
Okay, so that's bullshit again at another level.
You can view it that way.
No, it is that way. You just admitted that no one taught this way, but you retroactively, because of Anglican theologians in the 1700s, can look back and posit in a revisionist way that they suddenly became branch theory proponents, when you just admitted that they didn't actually believe that at the time.
So once churches are no longer in communion with each other,
guess what? The theology of the first 1,000 years of the church is still the same theology, which you've already admitted. That's the point.
Sure. So
I'm out. I'm done. I can't do any more of it. Notice the absurdity of branch theory. Hopefully everybody sees how stupid that is. So they had a self-understanding of the church as a single visible body for the first 1,000 years. The church has a schism. Suddenly branch theory is the case, even though nobody at that time believed in branch theory. This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. What's up?
Yo, so I just sent a request after listening to that last argument. I guess my main question is, for someone, obviously you're very smart and you spend, decades probably understanding this stuff. I would say, what would be, do you really expect everyone to understand these super long terms to find the right church, or is there some other means to which people will understand?
I already addressed this about an hour ago. We already talked about other means by which people can find and identify the church. No, it does not require people going deep into theology. Alex, what's up? I mean, if you pay attention to what he conceded that the attitude of the first 1,000 years is the attitude that the Orthodox still have, if you paid attention to what he was saying. Go ahead.
Hey, Jay. I don't want to debate you on anything, but I am a Catholic. I would like you to, if you can explain the differences in what Orthodox believes in on the topic of exorcism, and a follow-up question to that is, do you think there's a lack of practicing exorcisms in today's society?
Orthodoxy doesn't have this Hollywood idea of this guy that roams around and does it. I mean, there could be that. You could have an elder or a saint that does that, but no, I don't think that we have the same idea as the Orthodox position. Any priest can do that. I'm gonna have to go pretty soon because, of course, we've got a big interview that we're gonna do with Jake Rattlesnake, our good buddy. We're gonna be covering the Peterson-Dawkins debate over on his big channel. So got to hurry it up pretty quick here because that's at 4 o'clock. See, Stefan DV, $15. Thank you for the content. Have you seen? I already read that. Excuse me. Bumblebee, $5. For having less people call in and ask the same questions, could you make a playlist for the topics? I guess, but I don't even know how to classify all these. Ryan Beamish, $1. Would you do a debate against Gavin Ortland? No, I don't think he wants to do that. Tyler, $5. Thank you so much. DC Warwick, $3. Thank you so much. Valentin, $5. What do you think about Padre Pio Stigmata? I think it's a bunch of bunk and probably fake. Gotta make it quick. What's up, Chase? Chase? Can't hear you, man. Didn't turn your speakers on or something. Tennessean. Does anybody want to? We got almost up to 1,000 again. What's up?
Yo, hello?
Yep.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hey, man. So I was curious about the Orthodox view on church attendance. I know with the Protestants, it seems like every time the doors open, you're kind of expected to be there. Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday. What's the Orthodox view on?
Pretty much the same. Every time the door's open, you're expected to be there. So, Sebastian, what's up?
Hi, Jay. I just have a quick question.
Yep.
It's regarding Brother Nathaniel. Would you be willing to debate him? He called you on his stream yesterday.
No.
Okay. And why?
It's a waste of time.
I mean, like a reason as to why.
That's my reason why.
What do you disagree with him about?
Goodbye. Siddhartha, I mean, if you don't have a discernment to figure out who's got problems, I don't have time for it.
Hi, Jay.
Yep.
So my question is, how is the Orthodox theory of atonement biblical in terms of, I just see in the West there's an emphasis on propitiation and expiation with particularly Christ's death, but in Orthodoxy it doesn't seem to focus much on the death. And so I'm just confused as to how you guys view like a lot of the language in Hebrews of this propitiation.
It's covered in the live stream that I've done many times. It's covered right here. Penal substitution refuted in Byzantium. So you could look at that video that addresses that specific issue. We've covered it probably 500 times. Jamal, what's up?
Hello.
Yep.
What's your opinion on the 2018 split?
On what?
On the schism between the patriarch of Rome, or not Rome.
I covered it for like 6 years, man. I'm not going to repeat all that. Come on. Vasilios.
Yo.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you down to talk to Dean and Parker?
What?
You know who they are?
Who?
Dean and Parker, the two. If you want like Jubilee, where he talked to Ben Shapiro, and they're like always on TikTok. They get like 7,000 views all the time. They debate Christianity and stuff like that.
They what?
They debate like Christianity. I think Rachel knows who they are.
Maybe. I have no idea who these people are.
Atheists. Anybody else here like on TikTok will know, but they talk to. I think one of them talked to Andrew.
Okay. I mean, they can always hop in here.
I'm waiting for it, but that's all though.
Yeah. I'm open to that, I guess. To the people talking smack, like, why don't you come and debate? So, I like how people think that anytime you don't interact with somebody, it's because you're scared. Like, what if I have discernment and I've known that guy was a quack for the last 20 years? That's just so stupid. Guys, remember, head over to chalk.com and use promo code J50 or 40 to get 40% off JY40. Michael, CHOQ.com.
Hey, Jay.
Yep.
Hey. So I know the last time it didn't last that long, but I wanted to ask about the cosmological argument. I watched your video of it. I know you don't have a lot of time, so I just want you to kind of rehash it because I don't
have time to right now. I'm sorry. I got to go, but appreciate that. Everybody have a good night. Got to go be on Jake Rattlesnake.